My name is Staszek Kistryn. I am representing here Jagiellonian University. I am proud to be Rector of Proxy for cooperation within Una Europa, and from the beginning in Una Europa I take care of money, being the treasurer. I am proud of it. Welcome. We are starting the first open public session of the General Assembly of Una Europa in Krakow. I am very happy that you all made your way here, but before really starting the session, the introductory word and welcome will be given by the host of the place, Professor Piotr Jedynak, Rector Magnificus of the Jagiellonian University.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our first panel, let me warmly welcome you all to the Jagiellonian University. It's a real pleasure to host you here. A particularly warm welcome goes to our colleagues from partner universities and to all our distinguished guests. Thank you for being with us. We are proud to be organizing this year's Una Europa General Assembly. Our main goal over the coming days is to reflect together strategically and thoughtfully on the present and future of our alliance. But just as important is the fact that we are here in person with time to talk, share ideas, and explore new directions. We are starting today with a panel discussion entitled "Who Needs a Classical University?" A question that couldn't be more timely or relevant. It is the kind of question that should inform how we think about our mission, our strategy, and the role we play in society. Of course, universities with different profiles, technical, artistic, economic, are asking similar questions about their identity and their future. But the unique nature of classical universities raises some fundamental issues that are well worth examining together. I hope today's discussion will offer some compelling answers, but perhaps even more importantly, help us better understand why classical universities matter. Our moderator for this session is Professor Stanisław Kistryn. Staszek, over to you.
And let me just, at the beginning, shortly introduce the panelists. Very shortly, I got the agreement from them that I will not mention all the achievements, roles, and functions. Just shortly, I have the intention, when inviting my guests, to have people from different university networks. We are here, at the General Assembly of European University Alliance, but let us hear the views from larger networks. So, in the alphabetical order, I think it will be the best, or maybe in the seated order. First, Emmanuelle Gardan, the director at Coimbra Group, the, rather, let's say, middle-sized network. Rachel Sandison, the guild, the member of the board of the guild, and I must say, my successor in the seat of a treasurer. So now Rachel is also taking care of the money in the guild. And finally, Professor Marcin Pałys, from the current vice president of European University Association, a very big network of more than 900 universities in Europe. I have stated the question with some pre-assumption, saying who needs assumes that someone does need really the classic university, and we will try to deliberate, is it really the case, and whether we really are important in the present world. Since I am physicist, and we have now in the morning a session about perfectionism and freedom. I am perfectionist, so let us start with a very fundamental thing, saying first, what is a classical university? So I will ask this question to all the panelists, now asking rather, well, being brief, maybe 2-3 minutes in total, such that we can have several rounds of questions. So, Emmanuelle, please, what is a classical university?
So good afternoon again, and thank you very much for the invitation. So I will be speaking to you from a European perspective and from a perspective of universities which, for most of them in the Coimbra group, are the longest established in their own countries, and we share many with Una Europa Alliance. So obviously, and I think we will align on this with my co-panelists, but the definition of a classical university, we will refer to the definition of Humboldt, and I would like to highlight maybe some of the key features that we discuss within our network. In particular, the importance, and it was the first time in the history of these enduring institutions, I think we could call them, is the close synergies, the close links between research and education. I think this is what defines classical university. The principles of academic freedom, institutional autonomy, but also the close integration with their cities, because historically these classical universities have also developed into what we call now university cities, student cities. And classical universities have as main purpose to help students acquire knowledge, but also to disseminate this knowledge. And there's this notion of civic engagement that I think comes along with the classical universities, which is very important. I won't go further because I think
yes, please don't answer all the questions at the very beginning. Thank you very much, Rachel. What is your view?
Thank you very much, Staszek. And can I also just say what a pleasure it is to be able to join you today. I am a board member of the Guild of European Research Intensive Universities. I'm also the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the University of Glasgow. So I hope I understand what it means to be a classical university. The University of Glasgow will celebrate its 575th birthday next year. And yet, it is very rare for me to come to a university where I feel like a baby, because, of course, Jagiellonian is so much older than we are. But we have been around for a long time. And although a classical university is not a definition that is, I think, well used in the UK, what it means to me is universities that are broad-based and research-intensive, that foster independent inquiry. They are places where we create new knowledge, we disseminate that knowledge, and we really focus on the benefits and impact to society of cross-disciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity of academic areas. I think really importantly, classical universities value arts and humanities and social sciences as well as science. And exactly as Emmanuelle has said, we do so in the pursuit of truth, yes, but also to deliver real societal impact for the communities that we serve. And I think that link between classical universities and our wider environment is probably something that we need to spend a little bit more time thinking through and evolving, and I'm sure we will do that as we continue the conversation today.
Thank you very much. Marcin, you are last in the line, so perhaps...
Well, so much has been already said, so I can just endorse that the classic university is very often understood as a Humboldt-type university, or at least in the spirit of Humboldt. It's comprehensive, broadly, with very broad scope, but there is also something which makes difference between the classic university and some other institutions, like, for example, fact that the students are in person in one place together with the teachers, with lecturers, with professors. So it's not only getting knowledge or making a research, but also building kind of interactions between the students, among the students themselves, and student staff. It's a place where you can meet very talented people, and you can learn from them directly, not via the internet, not by reading books, but directly. And classic university has to be autonomous and free. Autonomous to choose the path of development and its activities, and free because it is necessary to, on one hand, have the freedom to do this, as you said, the free inquiry, but also to feel responsible for the society. The impact on the society stems from the feeling of responsibility. Of course, there will be also a gray zone of institutions which could be classic or typical or other universities, so it's not a clear-cut category.
Sure, thank you. And so we know we have well-defined few features which are typical for what is I call classical, or we call classical universities. But in the sector of higher education and research and science, we have other institutions. So maybe now, if you could point to some, most important differences between a classic university and, I don't know what you call the most specialized high schools or other institutions which you consider. But now, let's start with Rachel now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I think this is a really interesting question, and to my mind, research is the lifeblood of a classical university, and therefore research informs our curriculum, not just what we teach, but how we teach it. What I would say is that I think sometimes the lines between classical universities and other kind of applied institutions are becoming more and more blurred. Because actually at a classical university like the University of Glasgow, we are also focused on innovation. We are focused on industrial engagement. We are focused on civic engagement and the links to our community, and also preparing our graduates for the world of work, but really importantly for a world of critical thinking and inquiry. I think perhaps most importantly, it's this sense of classical universities being a safe space for critical challenge, to challenge assumptions, to challenge the status quo. And I think that is perhaps one of the things that really delineates a classical university from other types of educational environments. This sense that actually it's not just okay to challenge, it's encouraged that we do and really promote critical thinking and ethical reasoning and a profound understanding, actually, of human culture and society. So yeah, I would say that debate and inquiry are critical facets of universities like our own, but we shouldn't think that because of that, we are not attuned to societal needs. And I think more and more classical universities are engaging with the world around them and understanding what is expected of us by society and by industry and by governments.
Sure, but but we should also think that other institutions, not only classical universities, have their own role. Yeah, and so do we, as classical universities, somehow support this other type of institutions? Maybe now Marcin will tell something about that. Or
well, I would say that, as we have already mentioned, classic universities are usually comprehensive. They have the broad scope. They are internally diverse in the way how they bring in the students, how they hire staff, how they see their development strategies for research, for different activities. And unlike the specialized institutions, I think they serve the society as a whole, not any particular group, neither the professional group or social group. And in many situations, they just serve the humanity. It sounds maybe very pathetic, but that's why people inside the university really think and feel that they have the obligation to do so. And maybe one more remark. The goal of the classic universities, unlike the specialized institutions, is the long-term goal of building the society, not just educating. It's a societal role of them.
Okay, and Emmanuelle, what would you
I
say?
agree with my co-panelists that the distinction is not so black and white, especially in Europe. I think we can also think about the COVID pandemic, where both the classical universities and the other higher education institutions were all mobilized to help society in many different ways. And so we could see also that other higher education institutions were fulfilling some sort of societal engagement. But maybe what differentiates still the classical universities is also the notion of public good and access to education. And maybe just for the debate, but it may also be something interesting that I don't think any university in this room defines themselves in their communication strategy as classical universities. So is this something we still want to use to differentiate ourselves from the other higher education institutions?
Thank you very much. In your statements, you already touched on the problem or the aspect of the really role of classical, of comprehensive university in the society. But what is this role especially important in nowadays? Well, we here are representing the universities of different age, starting from Bologna, with which everything started. We are boasting our 661 years, and there are different, of course the role of university was different in different ages. But what is it now? How we are important, or maybe how we are not important in the present days. Now, Marcin, now you will start.
Okay. Well, in UA, we have often used the phrase honest brokers of knowledge. It is about bringing the knowledge to people in the way which is honest, which is impartial, and which is focused on the further development. This is the one thing. The second are the values that are being conveyed to the students, to the outer world. It is difficult time for the values now. We know that the values are not as not lived in the way we would like to see, and the universities have a role to play for this. And what Rachel already said, understanding the knowledge, critical thinking, these are the things that the universities are the best place to go for this.
Thank you. Emmanuelle, what are you saying?
So thank you for the question. I would go back to the question of democracy. I think we can see in these challenging times that where do people go to express their opinions? It's to the classical universities that we have seen most of the student protests in the past months, and not on the campuses of the other types of higher education institutions. And this is certainly one of the main relevance of our institutions today, that they are a pillar of our democratic societies, and they remain very relevant for this precise reason, I would say.
Okay, thank you. And Rachel, your thoughts?
Well, of course, I will echo what has already been said by Marcin and Emmanuelle. I think maybe in addition to that, just sort of taking a kind of a very macro approach to the question, Staszek, which is actually, I think we will be essential to responding to the grand challenges of our time. It will only be through universities like ours, working collaboratively and collectively with government, with industry, with NGOs, that we have any hope of responding effectively to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And more, I see classical universities like ours coming together to be able to harness that knowledge, that inquiry, that research approach directly to have that transformative impact on the societies that we serve. So there's an element of this which is our convening power as well, not just the work that is happening within our organizations, but the fact that we can come together collectively and be greater than the sum of our parts. And if I think about the University of Glasgow, we are credited for discovering and creating ultrasound, the first X-ray department in the world, television, discovering gravitational waves. That's things that I can point to within one classical university. So when you think around what we have developed and delivered for humanity as a whole to date, and you think about what's potential and the possibilities that we hold within our communities right now, it's incredibly, incredibly exciting. And I think that classical universities, as a result, are absolutely essential to the future of humanity as a whole. And that's a really big statement, I know, but looking at what we are here to deliver and what we have delivered, I think it's a really important one for us to make. And I think we all pretty much stay true to that vision and mission of transforming lives, and through transforming the individual life, actually transforming society around the world.
Yes, so that's, well, encouraging. We all see
maybe too optimistic.
Great future to our universities. And exactly, I wanted to ask you, but maybe before it came to my mind another question which you are not prepared for. We are here on the stage, we are very young, and but somehow already experienced with different functions in our life. How do you think our opinions are also matching the opinions of our students? We will have time to for exchange with the audience, and I hope that the less experienced, I would not say younger, but even a younger generation can tell what they think. But how do you think that we are really representing all generations, from, let's say, mine to the youngest here? Emmanuelle?
If I look in front of me, I think I see quite some diversity. But I also wanted maybe to respond to you with a question. Should we align the opinions of students and institutions? I think throughout history, there has been also examples, and I'm thinking about the University of Bologna that I visited earlier this year, where the rector explained to us that at the very, very early stage of the university, there was a student council, very powerful. So I would say that we don't necessarily need to align.
No, we don't need to, but if we are talking about future and we are in position to kind of shape the future, we should take into account what they are thinking. So
absolutely crucial to engage all the community.
Rachel, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I might just start by saying I think it is so vital that classical universities are elite without being elitist. I think we need to ensure that actually we are opening our doors to diverse talent from around the world. And I know right now we are all probably feeling a little bit challenged by some elements of our student community who have views on what is happening around the world. And actually, I think it's right that, as universities, we stand for academic freedom, for freedom of expression, and we have to allow our students to express their views publicly and with institutional support. It doesn't mean that we will always agree with everything that our students say, or we will be able to deliver everything that our students want. But universities have to be a place of open discourse. They have to be a place of critical debate. And I think the minute that we stop that, actually we are not holding true to our own values. So I think it's really important, but it's difficult, and I think it's become really difficult in current times. I think fundamentally, though, actually we all do want the same thing. We want to make a difference. You know, we want our communities to have a positive impact. I think our students would say that. I think our academic colleagues would say that. And I think our professional services colleagues would say that as well. So I think we are united in many ways. I think it's really important as classical universities evolve that we are constantly stress testing our mission and our values with all of the communities that we serve, including our own student community as well.
Thank you. Marcin, you are, well, your former function is rector of the largest university in Poland. I do not say the best, but the largest.
I thought you will say that.
And in that period, you have, well, several different interactions with students. So, well, please share some opinion on that also.
Well, maybe first something related to your earlier question. I think that, of course, every generation has its own way of expressing the things. Every generation has some preferences or priorities depending on the stage of the career, the age, the societal, I would say, trajectory. But there are still many things in common between the youngest and the oldest member of our community, academic communities. And one of them is the appetite for debating, for discussing, for showing different views and opinions and trying to find out what does it mean all. And the second thing is that I think there is no one in the academic community who does not have a curiosity. The curiosity is something that drives universities at all levels, on the level of the students, professors, professional staff, everyone. And now going to your question, well, yes, that sometimes you face the situations which are, I would say, irregular, the very heavy protests or occupations at the university. But I was always thinking that there is an appetite for discussion even in those situations. Maybe not everyone is as ready to discuss as everyone else, but still showing that the conflicts can be discussed, debated, and solved by, I would say, academic means, not by force, not by bullying, not by using kind of a misinformation. This is something what brings a very special feeling and very special experience to all those who are involved in this heavy, sometimes protest and sometimes very difficult situations.
Yeah, thank you. My colleagues, Vice Rector Bartosz and Paweł, were warning me that perhaps we will have some protests here, but we are successful today. Perhaps no one cares about Una Europa and General Assembly, so the students are not active. Let's don't call on that. Maybe I must say that I am very impressed by my panelists, because usually when I was asked to lead, to moderate some panel, it was always a problem that the time was too short, and now you are so well prepared and concise in your expressions that we have time for more questions. So now let me ask you, well, So, well, we are kind of convinced that, classical university is needed by society as large, by humanity, if we want to say so. Will that continue? So we are kind of starting the session of tomorrow, which will be led by Professor Brożek about the vision of the future. But let us just be not visionaries, but just saying what are our opinions, how long we will preserve our role, or what will be the role of our universities in the future. Who would like to start? Now volunteers, yeah? Rachel, okay, I see you are volunteering.
I'll start. Yes, I hope so. I mean, I think we have to be here in the future. I think we will continue to evolve and adapt, and we have already faced kind of evolution in some of what we do and how we deliver it. And you think about technology advancements, you think about industry expectations, you think about societal needs, they are ever evolving, and I think we will evolve to respond effectively to those. But fundamentally, our role in fostering knowledge, research, and community engagement will remain the same. And that's the basis of a classical university. What I would say, though, as a bit of a challenge to us all, I think we do need to make a better case for our value. I think we are living in a time of anti-intellectualism. I think there is a real concern, perhaps not across Europe, but certainly in the UK, in the US, in Australia, that universities have lost their social license. I think there is a sense that we are getting further and further away from delivering societal needs and responding to some of those challenges. And that is really, really difficult. I think we have got to get away from the sense that we are disconnected from reality, that we are living in ivory towers. I do not believe that to be true. I know it is not true, but it is the view actually of a growing many. So I think that we have got to be better at articulating our value, of demonstrating our value to every facet of society if we are going to succeed in the future. And I think we need to be more intentional as well about those, what we would call in the UK, town and gown, some of those civic partnerships. Global engagement, I think, is a key tenet for all of our universities. We thrive on global collaboration, but we mustn't forget what it means to serve our local and national society as well. So I would say a resounding yes. We, of course, will be around forever. But I do think that we need to make much more clear and compelling arguments for why we matter.
Thank you. There are quite strong words and fine statement. Now, Emmanuelle, perhaps you?
Yeah, I also fully agree with what has just been said, and I think it's a time for our universities to question themselves and to adapt, to be agile, maybe more than ever. We also can take a step back and see that our centuries-old institutions have seen other major crises and going through them, so we can also remain optimistic, and maybe rather than taking a conservative stance on preserving our role as classical universities, we have to take a proactive role and define which future we want to create. Maybe it's a time, because we are now talking at kind of utopian initiative. I think the alliances have been kind of in utopia in 2017. It's also a time maybe to have some utopian thoughts about what do we want classical university to become in the future. And it goes with listening indeed to our external environment, but I think also something which is often omitted by policymakers at national and maybe mostly at EU level, is that our institutions have very strong institutes on the future of education, and I'm thinking in our network, I'm thinking about some, for instance, Edinburgh have excellent and very strong institutes on the future of education, Aarhus University and others. And I think the governance of our institutions, the policymakers in the national governments and the EU institutions should also take more into account the academy. What does academia think about the future of education and future of universities?
Sure, thank you. Our Polish Prime Minister once said that, well, in policy, but in politics, who has, tends to have a vision should visit a doctor. But it is not, I think, not true for universities. We should have visions, and tomorrow I think we will hear more about visions of future of the university. But, well, now, Marcin, what is your thought about the future of...
Well, I think that if we consider the future of different institutions, I would say that there is a future for good institutions, and there is less future for institutions which are not good or they are not wanting to be good enough. Having said that, there is, of course, there are growing expectations for the universities, and especially classic universities. So it is also art of convincing that universities are good for many things, but they are not the universal tool to solve all types of problems. So if we remain at the scope of the universities, we may have a very bright future. If we try to answer all possible questions and expectations, it will not work, and there will be a disappointment. There was here already a notion of need for adapting, but it's not only adapting that universities should do. Universities should also actively shape the society, impact the society, not because otherwise they will not survive as institutions, but because they also have some message to convey, some values, some way of thinking. And with all the criticism of the universities, there is still a rationalism and understanding that can be promoted. Today's societies and especially politics are shaped very much by the emotions. There is even a term democracy as a way of ruling, not by reason, but by shaping the emotions and playing with emotions. Universities have a role, in particular classic universities, have a role in not letting this process go so far that the rationalism and knowledge will be seen as the obsolete ideals for the society. But I also think that there are very practical things that make universities having the guarantee for their place in the future. There are not so many institutions or places where you can make a blue sky research. You can research something because you are just curious how it is, where you look for combining the knowledge with asking the questions about the sense of all this. How does it make sense for this? So this curiosity, the attempt to understand the world and combine it with knowledge and with the methodology of giving the answers to the questions we all ask and ourselves are the activities that no one institution can replace universities.
Thank you well for all your interventions. Now, I understand that, many wise statements have been said already. And also, even if you are after coffee break, I understand that listening to just a nice conversation of four people just down there can be a bit boring, so I have an exercise. But we will exercise, not you, but maybe it will stir you up a bit. I want all of my dear guests to think now shortly about a 2-3 minute statement which they would like to convey to a Polish Parliament or European Parliament. So please imagine that you have the audience here much less friendly than this one, but those who say, well, science and higher education is very important, but we must save money, so it's the first place to cut. So please try to give a statement, and I will start with some, side statement, because I cannot resist having also a word here. So we will see how it will look like, and in this time you can think how you will try to convince. For Marcin, I would say our Konfederacja party or rightmost parties that classical university is indeed needed and should be well supported, and its views should be also used for decision making. So my statement would be about the third mission of the university. And my statement is that there is no third mission of the university. Every university has just one mission. It's service to society. I know Bartosz is laughing because it's my always point which I make. There is just service to society, and this service has two main pillars. The education, understood broadly as teaching, that is knowledge transfer, knowledge sharing, competencies training, skills development, but also coupled with citizenship formation, that is imprinting of values, ways of behavior, generally introduction to the higher culture. The second pillar is, of course, research. Research that is driven by curiosity, that's fundamental research, which leads to broadening of knowledge generally, and is accompanied and then followed by innovation, knowledge valorization, and putting the results of research for the common good. These two pillars and these three elements, research, innovation, and education, are depicted as a knowledge triangle. And, I claim there is any third mission. This knowledge triangle, using mathematics, is inscribed in a circle which depicts the full mission of the university, that is service to society. There is no way of separating education and research from service to society. There is no better way of service to the future of humanity than training new generations of educated, cautious, and active citizens, and of course of broadening knowledge and using it for the good for humankind. So it was side remark, and now please about the future, and not of the future, but about the role of the classical university, and please try to convince the parliament here that it is really needed and it has its role for society. Who will start? Marcin, yes, from this side, please.
I assume I'm speaking to politicians. So, what are universities? Universities are places to go for multifaceted reflections on world challenges. If you are a politician who doesn't want to just see a fragment of the narrow fragment of the landscape, but you want to understand it broadly, you go to the university, you ask the university to help you. If you are a high school graduate who want to live in a better world, You go to the university to meet people like you. And if you are a citizen who wants to know more but doesn't want to be manipulated, you go to the university for this. Universities will not work without money, which are necessary from the public, without the dedication of the society to support them, and without trust that universities will know what to do. Universities bring prosperity, culture, and they build enlightened society. To enjoy the sustainable development and advancement, countries need enlightened citizens. That's why countries erect and fund universities, because there is no success without them. Choking universities, marginalizing them, or closing is the way to decline. It is a sign already of decline. So think in larger perspective. Think about values, about freedom, about democracy and prosperity. And when you look for the allies in this thinking, look toward universities. They are there for you.
No. Well, this audience was convinced. Please, Emmanuelle, in your statement.
Honorable members of the Parliament, too much time in Brussels, sorry. With universities, our cities and our countries flourish in multiple colors. Without universities, our cities and our countries would fade down and you would see the world in black and white with very few shades of gray. Universities are vital components of our democratic societies, and we will never say it enough. Universities are not another sector of activity and should never be regarded as such. We are not a lobby. We will not provide you with return on investment as would any other sectors of activity in a country, in the European Union. So we should not be compared to the other sectors. Universities are among the oldest institutions in our societies. They have proved to be resilient over time. They have proved to be both beacons of continuity, but also actors of transformative change. With our triple mission to educate, to advance science, and to contribute to society, we are helping citizens becoming actors of change. We are helping societies becoming more inclusive, but we are also contributing to European competitiveness, the new buzzword, and we are ready to take our role in these challenging times, as we have over the centuries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rachel, please try to convince the audience for the third time.
I'm feeling the pressure. Well, esteemed parliamentary colleagues, who also happen to be representative of the Guild and Uniwersytet 21, so very nice to see so many friendly faces in the audience. What I want to say is that in a world that is moving faster than ever, the essence of a classical education remains as relevant today as it has ever been. And that is because classical universities value deep thinking, honest debate, and learning for the sake of understanding, not just utility. In fact, classical universities are bastions of critical thinking. And as Albert Einstein once said, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. In a culture that is obsessed with outcomes, classical universities value the process of learning, encouraging debate and challenging the status quo. And in a world that is becoming more divided and protectionist, they act as a bridge to bring people together from across Europe and around the globe to share knowledge and shape ideas that not only endure, but have a transformational impact on the societies that our universities serve locally, nationally, and internationally. And in times of uncertainty, education becomes a compass. As the Polish philosopher Kolakowski once said, education is the best weapon against ignorance and fear. But we're not stuck in our past, we are powered by it and the principles of academic freedom, respectful debate, and interdisciplinarity. Classical universities play a crucial role in the preservation of our culture. We are guardians of our shared history, language, literature, and arts. We develop thinkers and leaders that can synthesize complex problems and find innovative solutions. They, in turn, become responsible citizens, actively contributing to their communities and inspiring further change. But we also recognize that classical university must have the ability to evolve. We must endeavor to work in partnership with governments, industry, and our communities. We must foster partnerships with purpose that respond to the grand challenges of our time. We must protect our social license to operate and ensure that wider society understands, supports, and benefits from our endeavors. And we must never forget that classical universities are places of lifelong learning. The world needs classical universities more now than ever before, even as some in positions of power attempt to undermine us. Present company accepted, of course. And we have given the world the internet and the computer that it's accessed on, penicillin, ultrasound, and vaccinations, the theory of relativity and the printing press, the wealth of nations, and psychology. Our inventions and discoveries have fundamentally changed the fabric of society, but we also recognize there is much, much more to do. Classical universities may be rooted in tradition, but we are shaping our collective futures, and in so doing, we will continue to enrich lives and advance humanity. Thank you.
Thank you all. Well, I am kind of revealed that what I was doing for almost 40 years has some sense. That's good. And I will continue. But for the audience, I have a disappointing message. It's not yet over. It's not the end. I have still one question to my panelists before I will ask you for your perhaps opinions or questions. Well, we were talking about the classical university, but we are here gathered as an alliance, Una Europa, alliance of 11 universities. You are representing different networks of different, well, sizes and composition. How that what you are talking about classical university correlates with networks? How it can be well enforced, reinforced, obtain well higher level of importance when we are working together. Emmanuelle, start please.
So we were talking about the evolving role of classical universities over time, and to me, after 5 years leading this network, I really believe that when institutions come together, they are more innovative, more audacious together, and working together on the international stage helps the institutions have more creative for thinking. I have seen, we've had similar discussions in November 2023 in our network, talking about what does it mean to be excellent in the 21st century. It has changed radically, but when you address this issue at the level of your own institution, the cultural resistance may not necessarily facilitate this sort of discussion, while when you go on the international stage and discuss with your partners in an alliance, in a network, it's much easier to have bold thinking. And to give a second example, we've talked a lot about our role today as places of critical thinking, democratic debate. We will be also discussing with the members of our network in November about how to redesign democracy on our campuses and which type of solutions we can learn from each other. So I really see the networks as a vehicle for classical universities to adapt to their times, and sometimes to be maybe even a front runner to some cultural transformations that could not be taken immediately at an institutional level.
Thank you. And Rachel, the Guild view?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with absolutely all of that. I think networks provide the platform for advancing knowledge through collaboration. You know, no individual researcher, no individual institution has all of the answers. And through our network activity, we can collaborate across the research spectrum. We can develop new and innovative curricula through joint programs, through providing opportunities for our staff and student community, that idea of real global exchange, sharing best practice, insights, and, as I mentioned, responding to some of those grand challenges collectively. So I think networks are absolutely vital and play a really, really important role in supporting the ecosystems of our individual organizations.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we are also in the networks kind of pioneering different things, and that hopefully can serve the whole society. Marcin, let me ask the question, because it's not just continuation. Well, you were chairing different groups and sectors, but what is the added value of EUA? Sitting together of 900 universities, and how it is helping our sector to develop?
Well, first of all, having 900 members means that you have access to a lot of knowledge and a lot of data and a lot of information. So you may bring to the outer world the image, the description of the situation, of problems, of opinions, of processes that take place in different universities in different countries together, and make them available for everyone, for politicians in Brussels, for national governments, for universities themselves, for regulators, etc., etc. The second thing is that you can bring together people from different countries who would otherwise never meet because they wouldn't have any opportunity to do so. You can bring those people together in a very efficient manner. You can allow the universities to learn from each other, to share their experience, and to try to, on one hand, avoid the errors that have been made in one system, and on the other hand, understand that in many systems, some problems are simply difficult to solve, and it's not your fault that you haven't found this solution, but it's a larger problem. And another point is that members of the European University Association, especially from countries with smaller university systems, have always cited the persuasive power of having the data and the information from other countries to discuss the developments with own government and with the local governments, etc. So there is a clear advantage of having so many members, because it also allows the EUA to speak, as we used to say, as a voice of Europe's universities. EUA does not represent one type of the universities. Although we speak about classical universities here, EUA is much larger than only classical universities, from different regions, from different traditions, and yet all having the same spirit of university. So this is why we, as EUA, we value our broad membership. We encourage all the institutions to join EUA for these benefits and to make EUA stronger, and also to cooperate with alliances and other networks.
Thank you very much. I have certainly more questions, but maybe there is, better to give time for some remarks from the audience. Who would like to ask a question or, contribute, support some statements?
Yeah, thank you very much for all these insights. I think you have convinced us, if it needed convincing, that there are lots of people who need a classical university. And also in these challenging times where, everything essentially seems to be changing and facts and science are under pressure. But then my question is, a little bit variety of that question, what about classical university study programs? Do we still need those, or do we have to be much more flexible in what we are offering our students? So what is your view on that?
So Peter, sorry, you're asking about the programs particularly that we deliver.
Yes, and I think we have to respond to many challenges with all the education that we provide. Over the years and over the centuries, study programs by and large have been very conservative and consistently focusing on some disciplines, on some traditions and so on. And you don't need to convince me of the value of those, but is this the only thing that we need in society in the future? What is your view on that?
So I think, as I mentioned, I think it's a really fair challenge, actually, and I think it is right that we are looking at what we are delivering and how we're delivering that. That curriculum, and that curriculum is evolving. So if I think about my own institution, we spend a lot of time ensuring that our courses remain up to date and relevant. We spend time engaging with industry so that we are offering applied programs that make our graduates industry ready upon graduation. I think we also think really holistically about the skills that we are giving our graduates, and I think that's really the crux of a classical university. It's holistic education. It means that irrespective as to what that graduate wants to go on and achieve in the future, we are giving them a grounding in reasoning, in understanding, in the ability to inquire, the opportunity to develop those critical communication skills, problem solving, and providing also the chance for them to engage with a really diverse group of learners. So, we are welcoming to our institutions students from around the world that come from different backgrounds and have different belief systems. So our universities are melting pots of lots of different ideas and approaches. And I think that is helping us to ensure that we are setting our students up for future success. And that is also true, going back to the question that Staszek asked about the importance of networks and alliances. We're providing that global mobility and that global experiential learning, which I think is going to be fundamental as well. Our universities have been around for a very, very long time, and I think there will be some that will say that actually some of those courses haven't changed very much in the last few hundred years. But I do think that is evolving, and I think it's right that we are listening to our students' needs, understanding what government priorities exist as well within that sort of national and international landscape, but fundamentally ensuring that our graduates have the transferable skills that will allow them to have success in whatever field they go on to have a hopefully meaningful employment within.
Any one of you would like to add something? Emmanuelle?
Maybe just adding as a compliment also that your question, I think, relates to how do you embark the whole academic community? Because I think in this international arena, you are probably more or less all convinced of the need to adapt the educational curricula. But when you're back at your institution, how do you manage to embark the whole academic community and have this internal debate on the evolution of curricula? I'm thinking about maybe the example of some of our Dutch universities and the recent book by the former rector of Utrecht University and colleagues at the University in Transition. It's probably, the response is probably somewhere in having a broad and on the long-term discussion with the whole academic community and structural changes, because it also relates on the imbalance that we have seen in classical universities in the past decades, with research becoming somehow research has received much more attention than education, and in particular research excellence with regard to education excellence. And there's a debate to conduct on this.
Very briefly, I think that we have now a very much more diverse group of students and people who would like to learn than we used to have 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or maybe even 50 or 30 years ago. So diversification of forms is something that there is a necessity for this. But it brings another question. It brings the question, what does it mean to have a degree from the university? Because it has traditionally been something, a kind of certificate for following a program. If you now include the different forms of learning, you have to also, at a certain moment, answer the question, what does it mean to have a degree? And this is, of course, a subject for the broader discussion.
Hello everyone, I'm Żaneta Żegloń, representing Jagiellonian University, and let me have a slightly provocative question. Referring to the title of our debate and referring also to the fact that artificial intelligence may be from now on considered as a part of our society, what do you think? Does artificial intelligence need our classical universities?
Okay, I would say that it is so that we don't know yet many things about artificial intelligence and its impact. But what is common is that the people are afraid of what would be the impact of it. Not because they are afraid of losing the jobs, maybe also, or having different type of work, but because they are afraid what would be the impact of the artificial intelligence on society, on countries, on everything around us. So I would say that for humans, it is maybe even more important to have the basic skills like critical thinking, data literacy, understanding the text and messages. And this is something that universities can bring to people. Artificial intelligence will not bring it to people.
Thank you for the voice. I'm Anna Micałczyła from Jagiellonian University also, and I have a quite challenge for you. Let's forget about these technocratic problems of the universities, but when I was a student, I don't hear during all my studies nothing about the values of the goodness, truth, and the beauty. And I think that there are three values that are most important in classical university, and why we are not talking about this and including it to the university.
Is the question, because we are struggling to understand the question, is the question partly about why while you were a student you never heard about all these discussions on the values, you never heard the values?
Why you or we are still not talking about these values, also during, for example, this panel?
I think that the values and beauty, truth, it's not something you absorb by discussing about this. You have to feel it. So the way to do this is to be in the surrounding of the people who bring it to the discussions, where you can see the examples of going for the truth, for trying to find the beauty, the sense, etc. That's why only discussing it in a panel probably does not have that much effect as participating in doing it in the community. That would be my feeling, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, we are trying to having here the university debate, so it's already showing some values already. Yes, so I think that I had it when I was talking about values. I written that it should be imprinted by examples, and that's what I think we are trying to do it during our courses, lectures, and the different university activities. So, the question is why it is not then followed in the society, but by the whole society. No, sorry, but we must live with this question. I will not summarize because it was too wise and too many material for me to summarize, but I think that we all here are convinced that there is quite a simple answer to the question which is on the screen. I think that simply everyone needs a classical university, also many are not aware of that. And our role is to make them conscious and supportive about that. Thank you for being with us here. Thank to my panelists, Emmanuelle, Rachel, Marcin. Thank you very much for your contribution.